So the mists come in here and it's a beautiful day for me. This is what it was like a lot in where I grew up in Ferntree in Hobart in Tasmania. Misty day, usually a bit wetter. There's not much precipitation around. It's just dry, like what I describe as dry mist. Whereas in Ferntree there was always a bit of precipitation and some droplets of water falling and stuff. But it's a beautiful day for me right now. And at this point I was heading back to Tasmania again, but this time to drive around the entire state by car. And so that would be the first time for me to go around the state since I was a little kid with my dad and my brother. He took us around in the van we used to have. So I drive around all up what's called the East Coast to all the locations there, close to the water, beautiful locations, and to different waterfalls in the northwest. And then just did a lap of the state really, just to see it again. And then with a friend on a separate occasion, we went wading because he likes to do fly fishing. So we went into where was it? The Styx River, it's called. And we were walking around there, wading up the river, which I'd never done before. And that was quite amazing because usually I'm on a track of some sort or just bush bashing, but not really too far. But this was, without a track, you just go up the river because you've got the waders on. And so you enter into those worlds. It was a really quick way to enter into that kind of environment, the real separation. So that was a beautiful moment just to do that with him, with these big old growth trees around and the possibility of seeing a thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, that they say might still exist, but extremely low chance that there's one out there. And there wouldn't just be one, there would be a few, probably a population of some sort, 20 or 30, whatever they need to survive, survivable population. So very low chance of them actually being around because they're all killed. The last one I think died in 1936 or something. It was in the zoo, the Hobart Zoo that used to exist. It doesn't exist now. So at the end of the year we're getting to 2017 now, and before that I'd been trying to go to Antarctica. So you might have watched the other video where I talk about going down there. There was a chance to go in 2010 or 2011, and then again in 2014 as well when I went to Ushuaia. So I'd been to Ushuaia twice already before this, and then there was another opportunity that came up and I was looking for ways to go there. And usually it's on ex-Russian icebreakers or other tours, these big boats, and they take 200 or 300 people. And you're only allowed to have 40 people ashore at any one time in places in Antarctica. So if you're on one of these big ships, then it's a lottery. You have to take turns, or you have to take turns to go ashore. So you might have 3 hours at a place, but might only get 15 or 20 minutes ashore or something like that, because the next group of people have to go. But if you only have a small crew or a small amount of people with you, then everyone can go on shore at once or go to a place at once and stay there for the maximum amount of time, whatever that is, if that's 3 hours or even longer, or to go for a walk. It's much easier to organise. So by chance, I found a way to do that, and it was also much cheaper and much longer. This was going to be a 7,000 kilometre journey from Montevideo in Uruguay and back to Ushuaia, but passing through the Falkland Islands and South Georgia, another island down there, and then down to the Antarctic Peninsula, and then back across the Drake Passage. Whereas most ships, they leave from Ushuaia, cross the Drake Passage, which is the roughest section of ocean in the world, they say, and then you go to the Antarctic Peninsula, go to a few locations there, and you're limited if you're on a big ship again as well. You can only go to certain locations, and you've only got a short amount of time because of the amount of people you're with. And these boats rock like this, so it's easy to get seasick as well. And then you go back across the Drake Passage again, so twice, just go down and back. and sometimes you can be stuck. I mean, it can take some time to get across the Drake Passage, and it can be terrible as well. They call it a Drake Lake when it's calm, but it can just be the complete opposite, and more often than not it is, I suppose. Anyway, so you waste time in effect going back and forth on the Drake Passage because you're crossing that point twice. But this was a journey that would go like this, basically, from point A to point B, which I love, ideally, so you're not going back over the same places. But the problem was that there were no vacancies on this ship, and it was called the Bark Europa. Built about 100 years ago. It's a sailing ship, a tall ship, and it has 30 sails, about 240 ropes on it as well, and a crew of about 40. And so you have people who pay to go on there, and the permanent crew as well, but paying people on there as well. So you're working. You work in shifts, 24-hour shifts, broken up into 4 shifts, I think it was, and teams. And then, so you work at night or in the morning, and it swaps around depending on, your team. You just rotate around. So at some point you're always going to be waking up at, the middle of the night to do 4 hours or something like that, pulling ropes and stuff. And the jobs were to look out for icebergs, growlers they call them. They could be the size of cars or something, these chunks of ice in the water. So we wanted to avoid them. Actually steering the ship as well, so navigation. That was pretty amazing, and we just had an iPad with a compass on it, and also the physical compass as well. So just navigating, we have the course that we set. Doing the sails, doing the deck work as well, that kind of stuff. And so there was a few different jobs to do on the ship this whole time. And it's amazing because you're on the water 24 hours a day. There's it doesn't stop, really. So there were no vacancies at first, but I put my name down because I said, yes, I want to go. And then someone cancelled not too long before the trip was going to start. But that was just to the Falkland Islands, so this was one leg. And then just before it left, I'm not sure how long before it left, maybe 1 or 2 months, I found out another person had cancelled that second leg from the Falkland Islands down to Antarctica and back to Ushuaia. So I said yes. And it was a miracle. And again, these things seem to keep happening. The key is when it's honestly something that you really want to do from your heart, then, the stars seem to align or whatever. And I've been able to go and do these things. And this was something that I would say yes without any hesitation to do. And so I said yes, and I got the places. So I got the full route. So I was off to Argentina and then Montevideo to meet the ship. And I saw it in port at first, and I saw the mast there and stuff. And then I got there on the first day, and I thought it would just be old guys on there or something that, that retired people who really love ships and stuff. But there were young women on there, and they said, "Dick, come up the sails." And they were the crew because they loved tall ships as well, and they were used to going up and down the masts and everything. These are 30-meter masts as well, and I hesitated a bit at first as well because it's not like rock climbing. It's a different kind of strength. So it took me about 2 weeks to get used to it. But once I was used to it, then I could go up and down. So we took off, started sailing, and then the forces, once you're on the ocean, then I felt all my veins pulling and everything, because it never stops, of course. You're always moving. And I had a tiny bed. It was only about maybe this high, I think. I just slotted in there. And at first I thought, oh, how am I going to do this? Because if I just tried to sit up a bit, then I would bang my head or whatever. So I had to stay relaxed, but I've spent years teaching myself to be relaxed in any circumstance. I'm not too claustrophobic anyway. And then we had a warm shower as well, hot shower, so that was perfect too. And that would come out sideways as well when the ship was leaning to one side. And beautiful food every single day. We had a Dutch crew, and the cook, I think, had 20-something different meals that they could make. Hot meals at night, beautiful buffet breakfasts in the morning with yogurt and ham and cheese and eggs and all the rest of it, muesli and stuff, fruit, and then at night just a whole variety of food. So there was absolutely no complaints about the food. So that would keep a lot of people happy, just being having sustenance, good sustenance. Anyway, we would have meetings and stuff talking about what we were going to do, and then we had marine biologists on board as well, giving us lectures and stuff about what we were going to see, about the whales and Antarctica itself. And we even had a mic underwater mic that we could put into the water to listen to the whales and stuff. And as a photographer, you know, I was heading down to Antarctica in the summer, so that's 24 hours of light. So for me, that means, okay, I'm on 24 hours. I could shoot at night as well, of course, but you know, you generally see a lot more in the daytime. So I didn't want to miss anything. I didn't even want to go to sleep, really. And I asked people if they saw things and stuff. And when we were first going down, then there was even some dolphins at the back of the ship, and they were going through bioluminescence and making trails, and you can make up the whole dolphin just glowing. There's about 3 of them, I think. So watch them for a while and stuff. And I hesitated to go up the sails at first. There was a storm coming in. They wanted me to go up at one stage. I think it was only 4 or 5 days into it, maybe a week into it. But I said no, because I wasn't used to it just yet, because you have to climb up these stays, which I found out, even with snow on them, or if they're wet or whatever, they're always grippy. And you have a harness and a carabiner on there as well. But you can't stay clipped in, because it would be too restrictive for you to move around. So you're not clipped in, you go up and then you get to a certain point and then you clip in. Or you get out onto one of the stays of the mast to change a sail, and then you clip in there as well, clip out and clip in again. And then there's some wires underneath the crossbeam, and you can put your feet there to balance and then work on the sails. And you've got 2 or 3 people packing up the sails or unfurling the sails. Then you have to tie them up again as well, and that takes quite a lot of strength too. It's you're probably lifting 20 or 30 kilograms and using your legs as a bit of a lever, your legs and your back as a bit of a lever to do those movements. And so at first I was a bit unsure about doing that. I was fine. I mean, I wasn't really scared, but I just didn't think that it was a bit dangerous for me to go up there, because I might fall off or something. But once I got used to it, the movement as well, because you want to wait for the ship to move that way, and then you go up. You don't want to be moving when it's tilting back in your direction. So you need to time that as well. It's a bit of a balancing act too. But yeah, as I said, really everything was really smooth to go up and down on. But a few times I'd been doing the sails and I just saw my carabiner hanging there. I wasn't even clipped in. So I never relied on the wires or anything like that. I was always just relying on my balance and not relying on the carabiner either. And there's a bit of visual protection as well, because you've got ropes and the other sails down below. So even though you're 30 metres up, then it doesn't look like it, because you've got all these visual distractions on the way down. But you are, you're high up there, and I was shooting photos from up there as well. But in the end, I would get right up the top of the mast, have the mast below me and the whole ship moving below me, and I was totally relaxed. I could do it quickly and do everything quickly. So you do get used to those things, and I really enjoyed it too, especially because everything was grippy. You know, there wasn't some point where you would slip or something. You could rely on everything that was there. And then once we got down into Antarctica itself, it was amazing to see the ice in the water and stuff, and to look out for those things. You know, you're really active and in this, again, silent world. And once we crossed that 60-degree line, pretty much right on there, I think, we saw some type B orcas, which up until then had only been seen 6 times in history. I think some washed up in New Zealand, and then there were other sightings around the place. But after we did that trip, then the National Geographic team got a blood sample, a skin sample from some, and then found out it is a different subspecies. They've got a rounder head and smaller markings on the smaller white markings on the side of their head, and they apparently just eat fish. Small fish is their diet. But even on the way back, this is probably 2,000 kilometres away, so definitely a different group. We saw some more as well, so we saw them twice, and I don't think anyone in history had seen them twice. There'd just been one sighting of them before that in different locations, but we managed to see them twice, and I happened to be awake both times, so I shot photos both times, and that was quite incredible. So anyway, down in Antarctica, the Larsen C ice shelf snapped off just before we went down there, so we were one of the first ships down in that area. Just after that happened as well, and going to see penguins and whales and seals and stuff, elephant seals. It's incredible to see elephant seals up close, but it's hard to describe the whole journey, because it was, again, like in Cuba, going back in time, because I was on a sailing ship like Pirates of the Caribbean, the same as that, with these 30 sails, and when they're out it looks so beautiful, and if you can see it from a distance it's more impressive, but when you're on it then you're inside, so it's a different kind of view. But yeah, it was amazing to do that, and I was in a room with I think 3 or 4 other people, and at first it felt small, but once you're on those shifts, all you want to do is slide back into your bed, you don't even move, you have a sleep, and then you're up for the next round. And that continued for about 2 months, so that was pretty incredible as well. And by the time I got off that ship, I just thought, yeah, that's enough sailing, that's enough ships in my life, because I'd been on that yacht, living on a yacht, small cramped yacht, for 6 months before, and a couple of weeks out in the Galapagos, almost 10 days, and then on other ships as well, on shorter trips, like down to the Komodo Islands, 3 days or whatever. So basically close to a year of my life on sea vessels, I think. And after that trip I just thought, yeah, that's enough, because it is just work as well. It was for us anyway. I mean, 24 hours a day, basically something going on, and you just want to have a sleep when you're not on a shift. But it was an incredible experience, and unique as well, and almost impossible to do it again, I think, because after that, the pandemic hit, and then they stopped going down there for a while, and they only did that route once every 3 years or once every 5 years, I think, anyway. And just the cost of things now, they've gone up 4 or 5 times as well since the pandemic and stuff. All the economics have changed, and just usually they do a similar trip to all the other boats. They just go from Ushuaia down to the Antarctic Peninsula and then back again. But I did this trip, and then on the way back I smelt pine trees coming, getting close to Ushuaia, close to land again, and that was surreal to just smell land again, and then to finally get off the ship too in Ushuaia and end that trip of 2 months. I've got a lot of photos from that trip, and I took a Leica camera down there, a specialised camera that only shoots monochrome images. So with that camera, the sensor doesn't have what's called a Bayer filter. Most cameras use a Bayer filter array, and that blurs the images because it's a colour filter, and it's over the sensor. But if you take that off, all sensors are black and white underneath, and when you just have the sensor, then they say about 3 times the resolution, but basically you get pixel perfect resolution. So the images are much higher resolution with that camera, and they can be blown up much bigger as well. And I thought it was the right tool to take down there as well, because it's a fairly monochromatic world with this, generally dark and then white with the snow. So it really captured that world, I think, and that was just an incredible adventure.